At family dinner, my son Michael said, "Your job is to watch my kids while I enjoy my life with my wife. It's that simple. If you have a problem with it, the door is right there." I responded, "Perfect. I'm leaving, and you two can start paying your own bills. It's that simple." Those words left my mouth before I could even think them, as cold as the ice floating in the water glasses on the table. Michael stopped chewing. Jessica dropped her fork. The sound of metal against porcelain echoed in the thick silence that filled the dining room. My 3 grandchildren looked up from their plates, confused, sensing that something had just broken but not understanding what. Only Claire, my 16-year-old granddaughter, was looking at me with those dark, all-seeing eyes, the ones she inherited from my mother, and in her gaze, there was something I didn't expect to find. Pride. I should have seen it coming. I should have noticed the signs during these 3 months. The glances Michael and Jessica exchanged when they thought I wasn't looking, the conversations that ended abruptly when I entered the living room, the suitcases always packed by the front door, as if this house were a hotel and I was the permanent staff. But a mother never wants to believe her own son is using her. A mother always finds excuses, always justifies, always forgives before she's even asked for forgiveness. I stood up slowly, with the dignity my own mother taught me when I was just a girl in the countryside. I didn't tremble. I didn't cry. I simply folded the cloth napkin I had on my lap, placed it next to my plate of untouched food, and walked to my room without looking back. I heard Michael's chair scrape against the hardwood floor. I heard his voice calling me, but it sounded distant, as if it were coming from the bottom of a well. "Mom, wait, it wasn't a big deal." But it was a big deal. It was a much bigger deal than he could possibly imagine. That Sunday night, that dinner I myself had spent 4 hours preparing, was the moment everything exploded. But the story began much earlier, 3 months ago, when Michael called me on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in my little house upstate, the one I bought with your father's pension money after he died, watering the basil plants in the small garden I loved so much. The phone rang as the afternoon sun cast a golden glow on the cream-colored walls of my home, the one I painted with my own 2 hands, the one where every corner held a memory of the 30 years I lived alone, but never lonely. "Mom, I need you." Those were his words. "Mom, I need you." And I, as always, dropped everything. Michael explained that Jessica was exhausted, that the 3 children were too much for her alone, that his job as an executive kept him traveling constantly all over the country, sometimes for weeks at a time. He told me they just needed temporary help, just a few months, until things settled down, until they found a suitable nanny, until Jessica recovered from her burnout. His voice sounded so tired, so desperate on the phone, that I didn't hesitate for a second. I sold my house in less than a month. That little house with its porch where I drank coffee every morning watching the sunrise, with its wooden rocking chair that creaked softly when I rocked, with its windows that looked out onto the open fields where birds sang at dawn. I sold it for $45,000, less than it was worth, because I needed the money quickly to help my son. Michael told me I could stay with them as long as I needed, that there was a room for me, that we would be a united family again, just like when he was little. I arrived on a Friday afternoon with my 2 suitcases and 3 boxes. That was all that was left of my life. The rest I sold, gave away, or left behind. Michael and Jessica received me with hugs and smiles. The children ran to me shouting, "Grandma, Grandma." Claire, the oldest, greeted me with a kiss on the cheek and a look that, even then, struck me as sad. Owen and Caleb, the 8-year-old twins, jumped around me like excited puppies. Everything seemed perfect. They showed me my room. A small room at the end of the hall, the one they used to store Christmas decorations and boxes of things they no longer used. There was a twin bed, a narrow closet, and a window that looked out onto the back alley. The walls were white and bare. There was no space for my rocking chair. There was no space for my framed photos. There was no space for almost anything that was me. But Michael put his hand on my shoulder and said, "It's temporary, Mom, just until we get organized." And I smiled and said it was perfect, that it was all I needed. The first week was lovely. I cooked for everyone, prepared the children's school lunches, washed the clothes, ironed Michael's shirts. Jessica thanked me with hugs and told me, "I don't know what we'd do without you, Eleanor." Michael would come home from work to find the house clean, dinner ready, The children bathed and their homework done. I felt useful. I felt needed. I felt part of something important again. The second week, Michael and Jessica announced they had to travel for work. 3 days to the state capital for an important conference. I would stay with the children. Of course, I said. That's what I'm here for. They left on a Wednesday morning with their elegant suitcases. Jessica, in that salmon-colored dress that highlighted her slim figure. Michael in his gray suit that made him look successful and confident. They kissed me on the cheek and left me a list of instructions taped to the refrigerator. They returned on Sunday night, tanned and relaxed, smelling of expensive perfume and wine. They brought me a box of chocolates as a thank you. The third week, they traveled again. And the fourth, and so it became a routine. I would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, before the sun came up. I'd prepare the coffee in that silver coffee maker that made a sighing sound when it finished. The smell of coffee filled the silent kitchen as I prepared 3 lunch boxes with sandwiches cut into perfect triangles, washed fruit, and homemade cookies. I would wake the children at 6:30. I'd dress them, comb their hair, tie their shoes. I'd walk them the 4 blocks to their school, Owen holding my right hand, Caleb my left, Claire walking ahead with her backpack slung over one shoulder, her earbuds in. I'd return to the empty house and clean. Every day, I cleaned that house that was never finished being clean. I mopped the hardwood floors, dusted the furniture, folded the laundry, tidied up the toys the twins left scattered everywhere. At noon, I would eat alone in the kitchen, standing by the sink, looking out the window at the neglected backyard. In the afternoons, I'd pick up the children from school, give them a snack, supervise their homework, and take them to the park if the weather was good. At night, I cooked dinners that Michael and Jessica rarely ate because they arrived late or not at all. The suitcases by the door became part of the landscape. There were always 2 suitcases ready, one black and one wine-colored, waiting for the next trip. Michael said it was for work, important meetings, clients to attend to, contracts to close. But I started to notice things. The hotel tags on the suitcases when they returned. Hotels with spas. Hotels on beaches. Hotels that didn't seem to be for business trips. One afternoon, I found Jessica's phone left on the living room table. It was unlocked. I didn't want to look. I really didn't. But the screen showed an Instagram notification. A new photo posted. I opened it without thinking. It was Jessica in an elegant restaurant, a glass of wine in her hand, smiling at the camera. The location tag said Cancun. The caption read, "A well-deserved rest." It had been posted 2 days ago when they were supposedly at a work conference in the capital. That's when something started to shift inside me. Something dark and cold, like well water. The photo of Jessica in Cancun glowed on the phone screen like a silent slap in the face. "A well-deserved rest," the caption read. I was sitting on the living room sofa, that unfamiliar phone in my trembling hands, while the children played on the floor at my feet, building towers with colorful blocks. Owen shouted that his tower was taller. Caleb said his was stronger. Claire was lying on the other sofa reading a book, but her eyes weren't moving across the pages. She was watching me over the edge of the book, quiet, waiting. I swiped my finger across the screen. There were more photos. Jessica on a white sand beach, wearing a coral-colored bathing suit and enormous sunglasses. Michael beside her on the same beach, tanned, relaxed, with a beer in his hand. The 2 of them in a restaurant overlooking the ocean. The 2 of them toasting with champagne glasses. The dates of the posts coincided exactly with their supposed work trips. Every single one of them. I closed the app. My hands weren't trembling anymore. Something strange was happening inside me. Something that wasn't anger or sadness, but a kind of cold clarity. Like when dirty water settles and you can suddenly see the bottom of the river. I left the phone exactly where I had found it and got up from the sofa. Claire was still watching me. Our eyes met for a long second. She closed her book slowly and said in a low voice, "Grandma, I have to show you something." We went up to her room while the twins continued to play downstairs. Claire's room was the only space in that house that seemed to have a soul. Band posters on the walls, clothes draped over the back of a chair, books piled on her desk. She locked the door and took out her phone. She sat on the bed and motioned for me to sit next to her. "I'm sorry, Grandma. I should have told you this weeks ago, but I didn't know how. Her voice sounded guilty, broken. She opened WhatsApp and showed me something that made my blood run cold. It was a group chat called the Mom Plan. The only members were Michael and Jessica. Claire had gotten into her mother's phone one night and had taken screenshots of everything. Now she showed them to me, one by one, slowly, giving me time to read each message. The group had messages from 4 months ago, before I had even sold my house. Michael. I talked to my mom. She's in. Jessica. Perfect. With her watching the kids, we save the $1,200 a month for a nanny. Michael. And she'll give us the money from her house sale. We can pay off the credit cards. Jessica. Great. We'll tell her we're saving it for her, but we'll use it for the debts. She doesn't know how to check bank accounts anyway. Michael. She's my mom. She won't ask questions. I kept reading. There were dozens of messages. Jessica complaining that I cooked with too much oil. Michael laughing about how I didn't know how to use the new TV remote. The two of them planning trips while I stayed with the kids. Jessica saying they should give me a smaller room because I didn't need that much space. Michael responding that the storage room was enough for someone my age. There was a recent message from 2 weeks ago. Jessica. Your mom is starting to ask questions about the money. Michael. I'll tell her it's invested. She doesn't understand that stuff. Jessica. We should have her sign a power of attorney. That way we have total control. Michael. Good idea. I'll tell her it's in case of an emergency. Claire took the phone from my sight. I had my hands clenched in my lap, my nails digging into my palms. There's more, she said, her voice trembling. They sold your furniture. The pieces you left in the garage. Mom posted them on Facebook Marketplace. They sold them for $800 and went out to a fancy restaurant. I know because I was there. They made me go. Dad made a toast and said, "Thanks, Mom, for your generosity." I stood up. I walked to the window in Claire's room. From there, I could see the quiet neighborhood street, the trees with their leaves moving gently in the wind, the identical houses with their perfectly manicured lawns. Everything looked so normal, so orderly. But I felt like my entire world had been turned inside out, like a dirty sock. For 3 months, I had believed I was helping my son. For 3 months, I had gotten up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I had ironed, cooked, cleaned, and cared. For 3 months, I had slept in that tiny room feeling useful, needed, important. And it had all been a lie from the beginning. Grandma, I'm so sorry. Claire's voice pulled me from my thoughts. She was standing next to me, tears rolling down her cheeks. I wanted to tell you sooner, but I was scared. I was scared you would leave and I'd be alone with them. Because you're the only one in this house who treats me like I matter. The only one who asks how my day was. The only one who sees me. I hugged her. I felt her thin body tremble against mine. She was just a child, barely 16, trapped in a family that used her as decoration. I realized then that I wasn't the only one being exploited in that house. Claire was invisible to her parents, too. Just another responsibility delegated to Grandma while they enjoyed their perfect Instagram life. I'm not leaving without you, I whispered in her ear. I promise you that. That afternoon, after picking up the twins from school and giving them their snack, I waited for them to start watching TV. I went up to my room and closed the door. I took out an old notebook from my suitcase, one I had kept for years to write down recipes and shopping lists. I tore out a clean page and began to write. I wrote down everything I remembered. The dates Michael asked me for the money, the times they traveled, the missing furniture, the promises they made, every detail, every conversation, every lie. Then I searched the bottom of my suitcase for a creased business card I had saved years ago. It was from a lawyer in the town where I used to live, an older man who helped me with the paperwork when your father died. His name was Arthur Vance. I didn't know if he was still working, if he still had the same number, but he was the only person I could think of who might help me. I went down to the kitchen and used the house landline to call. I dialed the number with trembling fingers. It rang 3 times. 4, 5. I was about to hang up when I heard his voice. Arthur Vance's office. My heart skipped a beat. "This is Eleanor Ramirez," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. "I don't know if you remember me. You helped my husband with his will years ago. There was a pause. Then his voice, warmer. Of course I remember you, Mrs. Ramirez. How are you? Tell me how I can help you. I told him everything. I spoke in a low voice so the children wouldn't hear me from the living room. I told him about the money, the sold furniture, the lies, the messages Claire had shown me. He listened in silence. When I finished, there was another long silence. Then he said, Mrs. Ramirez, what you are describing is financial elder abuse. It's a crime. You have rights. You have options. He explained that I could get my money back, that I could prove Michael used it without my consent, that the WhatsApp messages were evidence, that selling my furniture without permission was theft. But he warned me that it would be a difficult, painful, and public process, that my son could face serious legal consequences. He asked me if I was sure I wanted to move forward. I looked around that kitchen that I cleaned every day, the clean dishes in the drying rack, the mopped floor shining under the light, the grocery list on the refrigerator in my handwriting, all evidence of my invisible work. My life turned into unpaid service. I thought about my sold house, my lost garden, my stolen mornings. I thought about Claire crying on my shoulder. I'm sure, I said. Tell me what I need to do. Arthur gave me precise instructions. I needed proof of everything. The WhatsApp messages Claire had shown me were a start. But we needed more. I needed bank documents showing that Michael had used my money. I needed evidence of the furniture sale. I needed to record conversations, if possible. But above all, he told me something that seared into my brain like a hot iron. Mrs. Ramirez, you cannot let them know that you know. You have to act normal. You have to keep being the helpful grandmother while you gather the evidence. If they suspect anything, they will hide everything, and you will lose your chance. Act normal. Those 2 words became my mantra for the following weeks. Act normal while inside I felt like I was falling apart. Act normal while preparing breakfast for the very people who had betrayed me. Act normal while ironing the shirts of a son who saw me as a free employee. That same night, Michael and Jessica arrived late again. They came into the house laughing about something, with bags from an expensive store hanging from their arms. Jessica was wearing a new lavender-colored dress that probably cost more than what I spent on food for the entire week. They found me in the kitchen, cleaning the dishes from the dinner they hadn't arrived in time to eat. Hi, Mom, Michael said, kissing my forehead as if nothing was wrong. The kids already asleep? I nodded. They're in bed. Claire is in her room. Jessica walked past me without a glance, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor, leaving a trail of cloying perfume that turned my stomach. Michael opened the refrigerator and took out a beer. He leaned against the counter and looked at me with that expression I used to mistake for affection, but which I now recognized as condescension. Mom, I need to talk to you about something important. My heart sped up, but I kept my hands steady, washing a plate. Tell me, son. He took a long drink of his beer. It's about your finances. I've been thinking you should sign a power of attorney. It's a legal document that lets me manage your money in case you have a medical emergency or something. It's for your own security. There it was. Exactly what the WhatsApp messages had predicted. I put the plate in the drying rack and dried my hands on the dish towel, slowly, giving myself time to control my voice. A power of attorney, I repeated. Yeah, he said. It's a common thing. A lot of older folks do it. That way I can help you with all the bank paperwork and that complicated stuff. You know you're not great with technology. Mom, it's to make your life easier. I looked him in the eye. Those brown eyes that were identical to mine, that had once looked up at me with need when he was a baby crying in the early morning, when he was a child scared of thunderstorms, when he was a teenager with a broken heart from his first love. Now those same eyes looked at me with a barely concealed mix of impatience and manipulation. Let me think about it, I said in a soft voice. It's an important thing. I want to be sure I understand it completely. His expression changed for a fraction of a second. A flash of irritation crossed his face before he smiled again. Sure, Mom, take your time. But it's no big deal. Seriously, it's just a piece of paper. He finished his beer, left the empty bottle on the counter for me to throw away, and left the kitchen. I heard him go up the stairs. I heard his bedroom door close. I heard the sound of the TV turning on. I was left alone in the kitchen with my still damp hands. Michael's empty bottle gleamed under the fluorescent light. I picked it up and threw it in the recycling bin. And as I did, I realized something. I didn't feel pain anymore. I didn't feel that pinch in my chest that comes when someone you love disappoints you. What I felt was something different, something more dangerous. I felt determination. The next morning, after taking the children to school, I went back home and went up to the master bedroom. It was the first time I had entered it since I came to live with them. Michael and Jessica were out again. This time, for what they called a midday meeting with investors. I knew they were probably at a spa or an elegant restaurant, but I didn't care anymore. I had work to do. I opened Michael's closet. It was full of expensive suits, perfectly ironed shirts, shoes lined up like soldiers. On the top shelf, there were shoeboxes. I took them down one by one. Most of them contained exactly that, shoes. But the fifth box, that one held something different. Papers, bank statements. I took them out with trembling hands and brought them to the bed to review them in the light coming through the window. There it was. My savings account, in my name, but with Michael as a co-owner. The initial balance, $45,000. The withdrawals began 2 weeks after I arrived at this house. $3,000, $5,000, $2,500. Each withdrawal with a vague description: medical expenses, home repairs, family investment. But I had never had any medical expenses. The house hadn't had any repairs. There was no investment. The current balance on the account was $16,200. Michael had spent almost $30,000 of my money in 3 months. I took out my cell phone, the one Claire had been teaching me to use better in recent weeks. I took pictures of every page, every statement, every withdrawal, every lie documented on bank letterhead. My hands weren't trembling anymore. They were steady, like a surgeon's making a precise incision. I put everything back exactly as I had found it. I closed the closet. I went downstairs. I made myself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table to wait for them. When they returned 2 hours later, loaded down with more shopping bags, they found me peeling potatoes for dinner. "Hi, Mom," they said in unison. I greeted them with a smile. The smile I had perfected over 72 years of life. The one that hid everything I needed to hide. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, I went downstairs quietly to the living room. I sat on the sofa in the darkness and opened my phone. I sent Arthur all the photos I had taken. He replied in minutes, despite the hour. "This is more than enough. We are ready to proceed when you say. But remember, once we start, there is no turning back. Your son will face charges. There will be serious legal consequences." I looked around the dark living room, the twins' toys tidied in their basket, the family photos on the wall, all with perfect smiles and perfect lies. The suitcases by the door, always ready for the next escape. I thought about my lost house, my stolen money, my trampled dignity. I thought about Claire, upstairs in her room, probably awake too, probably wondering if I would really do something or if, in the end, I would just give up as everyone expected me to. I wrote my reply: "I'm ready. Tell me what's next." Arthur's response came quickly. "First, you need to find a place to go. You cannot stay in that house once they know what you are doing. Do you have family, friends, someone who can take you in temporarily?" That was the hard part. All my immediate family was gone. Your father, 10 years ago. My sister, 5, my parents, long before that. My friends were all back in the town where I used to live, 300 miles away. I couldn't just show up on their doorsteps without an explanation. But then I remembered someone. A distant cousin, Carol, who lived in this same city. We hadn't seen each in years, not since my sister's funeral, but she had always been kind to me. She always said, "Call me if you need anything." The next day, while the children were at school, I called her. Her voice sounded surprised but warm when she heard mine. "Eleanor, what a surprise! How are you?" I told her I was fine, that I was living nearby now, that I'd like to see her to catch up. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop the next day. I didn't tell her anything else over the phone. Some conversations need to be face to face. The coffee shop smelled of cinnamon and fresh brewed coffee. Carol arrived 10 minutes late, apologizing, her gray hair pulled back in a bun, her kind eyes crinkling at the corners. We sat by the window. We ordered coffee, and then I told her everything. Every detail, every betrayal, every lie. She listened in silence, her coffee growing cold in its cup, untouched. When I finished, she reached her hand across the table and took mine. Her eyes were moist. "Eleanor, you can stay with me for as long as you need. I have a guest room. It's not big, but it's yours. And if that girl Claire needs to come with you, she is welcome too. No one deserves to be treated like this, especially not you, who has given your whole life to your family." I felt something loosen in my chest, a knot that had been tied tight for months. I wasn't alone. I had a place to go. I had someone who believed me. "Thank you, Carol," I whispered. "You don't know what this means to me." She squeezed my hand tighter. "Women have to look out for each other," she said, "especially when sons forget how to care for the mothers who raised them." I left that coffee shop feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The next few days were the strangest of my life. I was living in two simultaneous realities. In one, I was the ever-helpful grandmother, waking up before dawn, preparing breakfasts, packing lunches, cleaning bathrooms, folding laundry. In the other, I was a silent strategist, gathering evidence piece by piece, building my escape like someone putting together a puzzle in secret. No one noticed anything. Michael and Jessica continued with their lives as if I were part of the furniture, useful but invisible. One afternoon, while I was cleaning Michael's study, I found more. A crumpled receipt in the wastebasket. It was from an expensive jewelry store downtown. $2,300 for a white gold bracelet. The date matched one of the withdrawals from my account perfectly. Jessica had been wearing that bracelet in her latest Instagram post, showing it off on her slender wrist as she held a wine glass. The caption read, "When your husband spoils you for no reason, he loves me so much." I took a photo of the receipt. I crumpled it back up exactly as it was and put it back in the wastebasket. I kept cleaning as if nothing had happened. But inside, something was burning. That night at dinner, Jessica wore the bracelet. The dining room light reflected off the gold, making it sparkle. She moved her wrist deliberately as she ate, making sure everyone saw it. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she said, looking at Michael with sparkling eyes. "My husband has such good taste." Michael smiled proudly. "Only the best for you, my love." Claire looked at me from across the table. Our eyes met for a second. She knew. She could see in my expression that I had discovered something else. She lowered her gaze to her plate and continued eating in silence, but I saw how her fingers tightened on her fork. The next day was Saturday. Michael announced at breakfast that he and Jessica were leaving on another trip, this time to Miami. 5 days, an important industry convention. "Mom, you'll handle everything here, right?" It wasn't a question. I nodded as I poured more orange juice. "Of course, son. You go and don't worry." They left on Sunday morning. I watched them load their suitcases into the car. Jessica, with enormous sunglasses and a mint green dress that fluttered in the breeze, Michael, with his perfectly pressed shirt. They kissed me on the cheeks. "Be good, kids," Jessica shouted from the window as they pulled away. The car disappeared around the corner. I stood in the doorway with the 3 children beside me, feeling the weight of what I was about to do. That afternoon, after the twins went down for their nap, I asked Claire to come to my room. I locked the door. We sat on the edge of my narrow bed. "Claire," I said in a low voice, "I need your help with something important." She nodded immediately. "Anything, Grandma." I explained my plan. I needed to access Michael's computer. I needed to check his emails, his files, any other evidence of how he had spent my money. Claire knew the password because she sometimes used it for school homework. But we had to be careful. We couldn't leave a trace. We couldn't change anything. Just look and document. She looked at me with those eyes that seemed too old for her age. "Grandma, they're stealing from you. Of course I'll help you. But there's something else you need to know." She lowered her voice even more. "Mom's not pregnant. That story they told last month about a high-risk pregnancy. It's a lie. I heard her talking on the phone with her sister. She said they made it up so you wouldn't ask questions about why they travel so much. The air caught in my throat. I remembered the day Michael sat me down in the living room and told me with a serious face that Jessica was pregnant, but that there were complications, that she needed rest, that the doctors had recommended short trips to reduce her stress. I had cried with happiness, thinking I would have another grandchild. I had cooked special meals. I had insisted that Jessica not lift a finger. It had all been theater. "Thank you for telling me," I whispered. Claire put her hand on mine. "Grandma, when you leave, I want to go with you. I can't live with them anymore. They use me for family photos, but they don't care about me. They never have. The only reason they haven't sent me to boarding school is because it would look bad on their social media." I hugged her tight. "You're coming with me," I promised. "I swear it on everything I am." That night, after putting the twins to bed, Claire and I sat in front of Michael's computer in his study. The light from the monitor glowed in the darkness. She typed in the password. The screen lit up, showing a desktop full of meticulously organized folders. We started looking. We found emails. Dozens of emails between Michael and a real estate agent. They were planning to sell this house. The conversation had started 2 months ago. The agent said they could easily get $500,000 for the property. Michael replied, asking about smaller houses in other neighborhoods, houses with only 3 bedrooms. No room for me. The plan was to sell me on the idea of a nursing home, to make me believe it was for my own good, and to keep my share of the money from the sale. There was a folder named Mom's Finances. We opened it. It contained detailed spreadsheets of every penny they had spent of my money. Trip to Cancun, $4,000. Restaurants, $2,100. Clothes and accessories, $6,800. New living room furniture, $3,500. Credit card payments, $11,200. Every expense was meticulously documented, as if it were something to be proud of. Claire took photos with her phone while I stared at the screen, feeling the world blur at the edges. This was my son, the baby I nursed, the child I cared for when he had pneumonia at 7 years old, staying awake for 3 nights straight, the teenager I helped with his math homework, the young man I lent money to for his first car, the man I sold my house for. We found a Word document titled Strategy. We opened it. It was a step-by-step plan of how to manipulate me. Step 1, convince her to sell her house and move in. Step 2, take control of her money under the pretext of helping her. Step 3, have her sign power of attorney. Step 4, use her as a free nanny while we pay off our debts. Step 5, when the money runs out, convince her a nursing home is the best option. Step 6, sell the house and move to something smaller, without her. It had been planned from the beginning. Every hug, every "we need you, Mom," every "thanks for everything you do." It had all been calculated. I wasn't his mother. I was a resource to be exploited. "That's enough," Claire said, her voice breaking. She was crying too. "Grandma, we have everything. Let's go. Please, let's go now." But I shook my head. "Not yet. We need to wait for the right moment. If we leave now, while they're away, they'll call the police. They'll say I abandoned them with the children. We need to wait until they come back." Those 5 days were an eternity. I took care of the twins, as I always did. I took them to the park. I made them their favorite meals. I read them stories before bed. Owen and Caleb had no idea what was happening. They were innocent in all of this, and that was the part that hurt the most. I loved them. I loved their laughs, their spontaneous hugs, the way they called me Grandma in their high-pitched voices. But I couldn't save them without destroying myself. At night, when the house was asleep, I packed in silence. One suitcase with my clothes, another with my important documents. The photos of your father, my rosary, my mother's recipe book. The few things that truly mattered. I hid them in the back of my closet, ready to go at a moment's notice. Arthur called me every afternoon to review the plan. He had prepared all the legal documents. A temporary restraining order against Michael, so he couldn't touch what was left of my money. A civil lawsuit for misappropriation of funds. a criminal complaint for financial elder abuse. Everything was ready. We were just waiting for my signal. On Thursday night, Michael called me. His voice sounded relaxed. Happy. "Hi, Mom. How are the kids?" I told him they were fine, that everything was quiet. "Perfect," he said. "We'll be back on Saturday afternoon. Oh, and Mom, when we get back, I need you to sign that power of attorney. I've already spoken to the notary. It's important we do it soon." "Of course, son," I replied in a sweet voice. "Whenever you want." I hung up the phone. I looked at the calendar on the wall. Saturday. In 2 days, my life would change forever. On Friday morning, I woke up with a strange clarity. It was as if all the fear, all the doubt, had evaporated during the night. I got up at 5, as always, but this time not out of obligation, but by choice. I made coffee in the silent kitchen and sat by the window, watching the sky change from black to gray to pink. It was my second to last morning in this house. By this time tomorrow, it would all be over. I called Carol early. "Tomorrow," I said simply. "We're leaving tomorrow." She didn't ask questions. She just said, "I'll be ready. I'll send you the address. Come whenever you can." Then I called Arthur. "Tomorrow afternoon," I informed him. "They get back at 4. I need the documents to be ready by 5, he replied in a firm voice. "They'll be ready. You just get yourself and the girl out of that house. I'll handle the rest." I spent that day in a strange state, as if I were watching my life from the outside. I took the twins to the park and watched them on the swings, their laughter filling the warm afternoon air. Caleb asked me to push him higher. Owen wanted me to watch him do tricks on the monkey bars. I watched them, engraving every moment in my memory, knowing it would likely be the last time I would care for them like this. It wasn't their fault. They were innocent. But I couldn't save them without sacrificing myself, and I had finally learned that saving myself wasn't selfish. It was survival. That night, I made a special dinner. Roast chicken with potatoes and carrots, the twins' favorite. I even made flan for dessert, the one Claire loved. The 4 of us ate at the kitchen table. The twins chattered non-stop about their day at school. Claire ate in silence, but every so often she would look at me, and I saw the unasked question in her eyes. "Is it really going to happen?" I would nod slightly. "Yes. Tomorrow, everything changes." After putting the children to bed, I went up to my room and checked everything one last time. The suitcases were packed, hidden in the back of the closet. The important documents were in my purse. The photos Claire took were on her phone. All the evidence was backed up to the cloud. Arthur had copies of everything. There was no turning back now. The plan was in motion like a stone rolling downhill, unstoppable. I lay down but didn't sleep. I spent the night staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the house, the refrigerator humming, the water heater clicking, the small creaks of the wood settling. This house had never been mine. It had never belonged to me. I had only been a temporary piece, useful while I lasted, disposable when I wore out. Saturday dawned bright and clear. I got up, showered, and dressed with care. Comfortable pants, a simple ivory-colored blouse, shoes I could walk in for hours if needed. I pulled my hair back into a low bun. I looked at myself in the small mirror in my room. The woman looking back at me was not the same one who had arrived here 3 months ago. That woman had been naive, hopeful, desperate to feel needed. This woman was different. This woman had learned that sometimes love isn't enough, that sometimes people disappoint you in ways you never imagined, that sometimes the only way to survive is to walk away from those who say they love you but are destroying you. I made breakfast. I woke the twins. I fed them. I bathed them. I put them in clean clothes. I did everything exactly as I had done every morning for 3 months. But inside, I was counting the hours. 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That was the time. Michael had said they would arrive at 4. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I started to move my things. I brought the suitcases downstairs while the twins were watching TV in the living room. I put them by the back door, hidden behind the curtains. Claire came down with her own backpack, small and discreet. Just the essentials, I had told her. We can get the rest later. She had packed clothes, her ID, her laptop, a few photos, nothing else. At 3:30, my phone rang. It was Carol. I'm ready. Are you still on? I replied. Yes. We'll be out in half an hour. Then I texted Arthur. Proceed. I will be out in 1 hour. The minutes dragged on. I sat in the living room with the twins, watching their cartoon show. Caleb cuddled up against my side. Owen put his head in my lap. I stroked their hair gently, memorizing the feel of their soft hair under my fingers, the small, trusting weight of their bodies. You're going to be okay, I whispered, though they couldn't hear me over the sound of the TV. Your parents will take care of you. You'll grow up, and maybe someday you'll understand. At 10 minutes past 4, I heard the car in the driveway. My heart sped up, but my hands stayed steady. Michael and Jessica came through the front door, tanned and relaxed. They were carrying their suitcases, bags of souvenirs, wide smiles. Hi, they shouted. We're home. The twins ran to them, screaming, Dad, Mom. Michael lifted them both up, one in each arm, laughing. Jessica saw me on the sofa. Hi, Eleanor. Everything okay? Her voice was casual, disinterested. I nodded. Everything's fine. She passed by me toward the kitchen, dragging her suitcase. Michael put the children down and turned to me. Mom, give me half an hour to shower, and then we'll sit down and sign those papers, okay? The notary can come by early tomorrow. Yes, Son, I replied. Take your time. They went upstairs. I heard their footsteps on the floor above. I heard the shower turn on. This was the moment. I got up from the sofa with all the calm in the world. Claire appeared in the living room doorway. We looked at each other. She nodded. I nodded. I went to the back door. I grabbed my suitcases. Claire grabbed her backpack. We walked out through the kitchen, into the backyard, then around the house to the street. My old car was parked on the street, the one Michael had suggested I sell because I didn't need it anymore. Good thing I never listened to him. I opened the trunk. We put the suitcases in. We got in the car. Before starting the engine, I took a white envelope from my purse. Inside was a handwritten letter. I had drafted it the night before, choosing each word with care. I read it one last time. Michael, by the time you read this, I will be gone. I will not continue to be your unpaid employee. I will not be signing any power of attorney. I will not allow you to continue to steal from me. My lawyer will be in contact with you regarding the money you spent without my authorization. I hope those trips and that jewelry were worth it, because they are going to cost you much more than you paid. The children are with you, as they should be. They are your responsibility, not mine. Claire is coming with me because she chose to. She is 16 years old and has the right to choose. Do not try to find me. Do not try to contact me. We are done. Your mother, Eleanor. I got out of the car. I walked back to the front door. I slid the envelope under the door. I watched it disappear into the house. Then I walked back to the car, started the engine, and drove to the corner without looking back. Claire was silent in the passenger seat. I took her hand. She squeezed mine hard. It's okay to be scared, I said. I'm scared too, but we're going to be okay. Together, we're going to be okay. I drove, following the GPS directions to Carol's house, 20 minutes across town. 20 minutes that felt like hours. Every red light seemed like an eternity. I kept checking the rearview mirror, expecting to see Michael's car following us, but the street behind us remained empty. We arrived at a small house in a quiet neighborhood. Peach-colored walls, a garden with flowers, a large tree out front. Carol came out before we could even knock. She hugged both of us without a word. Then she ushered us inside, closed the door, and said, "You're safe here. Welcome home." The guest room was simple but cozy. A double bed, a small desk, cream-colored curtains, a window overlooking a backyard full of plants. Claire and I set down our bags. We sat on the bed. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then my phone started ringing. Michael's name glowed on the screen. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. Immediately, it started ringing again, and again, and again. 10 calls in 5 minutes. Claire watched me with wide eyes. "You're not going to answer. It wasn't a question." I shook my head. "No, there's nothing left to say." The messages started to arrive. I read them on the lock screen without opening the conversations. Mom, what does this mean? Mom, pick up the phone. Mom, you can't just leave like this. Mom, this is ridiculous. Mom, come back right now. Mom, I'm going to call the police. Mom, you will regret this. Each message was more desperate than the last, but I didn't answer a single one. At 5:30, Carol's doorbell rang. She went to open it. I heard her talking to someone at the door. Then she came back to the room. It's a process server. He has documents for you. I went out to the living room. A man in a uniform handed me a large envelope. I need you to sign here, ma'am. I signed. He left. I opened the envelope. They were the documents from Arthur. The temporary restraining order, the civil lawsuit, the criminal complaint, all officially filed with the courts. Michael would be receiving his copy at any moment. My phone rang again. This time, it was an unknown number. I answered. It was Arthur. Mrs. Ramirez, the documents have been filed. Michael has been served. As of this moment, he cannot access your bank account. What's left of your money is protected. We have also filed the lawsuit to recover what he spent without authorization, and the criminal complaint is in the hands of the district attorney. He is going to try to contact you. Do not respond. Any communication must go through me. Thank you, Arthur, I said in a steady voice. You don't know what this means to me. He replied, Ma'am, I have seen many cases like yours. Children who exploit their elderly parents. But I rarely see someone with the courage to do what you are doing. It's going to be difficult. He is going to fight. But the law is on your side. The evidence is irrefutable. That night, Carol made us dinner. Vegetable soup, homemade bread, chamomile tea. We ate in her small, cozy kitchen with floral placemats and cloth napkins. It was all so simple, so peaceful. There was no tension in the air, no walking on eggshells, no suitcases waiting by the door. For the first time in 3 months, I took a deep breath and felt my lungs fill completely. After dinner, Claire and I sat in the guest room. She took out her phone and showed it to me. Grandma, Dad is sending me messages. Dozens of messages. I read a few. Claire, this is your grandmother's fault. She's abandoning us. Claire, tell her to come back or she'll destroy this family. Claire, she's manipulating you. Claire, if you don't come back, you're going to regret it. Every message was a mix of manipulation and barely disguised threats. What do you want to do? I asked her. Do you want to go back? She looked at me as if I had asked her if she wanted to cut off an arm. No, Grandma, never. I'd rather sleep on the floor than go back to that house. They never saw me. They only saw you when they needed something. And they only saw me when they needed the perfect family photo for Instagram. We're not people to them. We're accessories. That night, lying in the same bed in the darkness, Claire told me things she had never shared. She told me how her parents made fun of her when she wasn't thin enough for their standards. How Jessica would buy her clothes 2 sizes too small as motivation to lose weight. How Michael told her she needed to try harder in school, be more popular, get better grades, represent the family better. How they both checked her social media and demanded she delete posts that didn't project the right image. How she felt invisible until I arrived, until someone finally asked her how her day was and actually listened to the answer. She cried in my arms that night, and I cried too. For her, for me, for the years we had both lost, trying to please people who would never be satisfied. Sunday dawned with rain, soft drops tapping against the window, the sky gray and heavy. My phone continued to receive calls and messages. Michael, Jessica, unknown numbers that were probably them calling from other phones. I didn't answer any, but I did read them. I needed to know what they were planning. Jessica wrote to me, Eleanor, I don't know what's wrong with you, but this is incredibly selfish. You left us with 3 children and no help. How are we supposed to work now? And on top of that, you took Claire. She has to go to school. This is kidnapping. You're going to be in legal trouble. I took a screenshot of that message and sent it to Arthur. He replied, Perfect. This proves they saw you as an unpaid employee. And Claire is 16 and has rights. It's not kidnapping. Save everything they send you. In the afternoon, Michael changed his strategy. His messages became pleading. Mom, please. Let's just talk. I know I made mistakes. We can fix this. The kids miss you. Owen is asking for you. Caleb is crying at night. Don't do this to them. They love you. I love you. You're my mother. You can't just abandon me like this. I read those messages and felt something twist in my stomach. Because part of me, the part that had been a mother for 42 years, wanted to believe him. Wanted to think that maybe he was sorry, that maybe we could fix this. But then I remembered the messages from the Mom Plan group. I remembered the spreadsheet with every cent of my money spent on luxuries. I remembered the document titled Strategy. I remembered the $2,300 bracelet shining on Jessica's wrist. No, I said to myself, out loud. I'm not falling for it again. Claire looked up from the desk where she was doing homework. Grandma, are you okay? I nodded. I'm fine. Just reminding myself who I am. On Monday, Claire and I went to her school to arrange the change of address. The secretary looked at us with suspicion. We need authorization from both parents for any information changes, she said in a dry tone. Claire took out her ID. I'm 16. In this state, I have the right to choose who I live with if there's just cause. My grandmother is my temporary legal guardian now. Here are the documents. We handed her the papers Arthur had prepared. The secretary reviewed them, frowned, made a phone call, spoke to someone in a low voice. Finally, she sighed. All right. The change is made. But if the parents come here to complain, we'll have to call the authorities. Claire replied with a steady voice. Call them. I have nothing to hide. We walked out of the school holding hands. I felt something swell in my chest. Pride. This 16-year-old girl had more of a backbone than many adults I knew. That afternoon, while Carol was at work and Claire was at school, I sat in the small backyard of the house. There was a wooden bench under a tree. I sat there with a cup of tea, listening to the birds, watching the clouds move slowly across the sky. My phone was inside. I hadn't brought it. For the first time, I was completely alone with my thoughts, without interruptions. I thought about my life. 72 years. I had been a wife for 35 years, until your father died. I had been a mother since I was 30. I had worked cleaning houses to pay the bills when Michael was little and your father didn't earn enough. I had cooked thousands of meals, washed thousands of loads of laundry, cleaned countless floors, sacrificed my own dreams time and time again for my family. And in the end, my own son had seen me as a disposable tool. But I was still here, breathing, alive, free. And that had to mean something. A mint plant was growing in a pot next to the bench. I touched it gently. The leaves released their fresh, strong scent. Mint, like the kind that grew in my lost garden. Carol must have planted it. Or maybe it had always been there, waiting for me. I picked a small leaf and rubbed it between my fingers. The smell filled me, anchored me to the present moment. I was going to be okay. I didn't know how, exactly. I didn't know how long it would take. But I was going to be okay. When Claire got home from school, she found me in the garden. She sat next to me on the bench. Grandma, Dad came to the school today. He saw me on my way out. He tried to talk to me. My heart sped up. What did he say? She shrugged. That I'm making a mistake. That you brainwashed me. That I'll regret it. The usual stuff. I told him to leave me alone or I'd call security. He left. I'm sorry, Claire. I don't want you to go through this. She took my hand. Grandma, I've been through worse living with them. This, what we're doing now, this is liberation. The first week at Carol's house passed in a strange kind of fog. Every morning, I woke up expecting to hear the twins' voices, expecting to have to run to make breakfasts and pack lunches. But instead, there was silence. A soft, gentle silence that took me days to get used to appreciate. Carol left for work early. Claire left for school. And I was left alone in that small house that smelled of lavender and toast. At first, I didn't know what to do with myself. I cleaned things that were already clean. I cooked portions that were far too large, as if I were still feeding 5 people. I would find myself jumping to my feet every time I heard a noise, ready to attend to someone who wasn't there. 72 years of being conditioned to serve don't disappear in a week. But slowly, I began to remember who I was, before I became my son's invisible shadow. One afternoon, I found Carol's painting supplies in a closet. "Use them whenever you want," she told me. "I haven't touched them in years." I took out the watercolors, the brushes, the thick paper. I sat in the garden and painted the first thing that came to my mind. A small house with cream-colored walls. A garden with basil plants. A rocking chair on the porch. My lost house taking shape in soft colors on white paper. I cried while I painted. But it wasn't the desperate crying of the first few days. It was something different. A necessary mourning. A goodbye to what had been. When I finished, I hung the painting on the wall of my room. A reminder that lost things don't disappear completely if you keep them in your heart. The messages from Michael continued. Every day, a new strategy. First, it was pleas. Then threats. Then attempts to make me feel guilty. "Mom, Owen got sick and asked for you. Mom, Caleb is getting bad grades because he's depressed. Mom, Jessica had to quit her job because of you. Mom, we're going to lose the house if you don't help me." Every message was designed to make me give in, go back, and submit again. But Arthur had warned me about this. "It's called the cycle of abuse," he explained over the phone. "First come the apologies and promises, then the threats, then the guilt. Then they start all over. It's predictable. Don't fall for it." I saved every message without replying. They were evidence, proof of the pattern of manipulation that had lasted my entire life without me recognizing it. One afternoon, 2 weeks after I left, Jessica showed up at the door of Carol's house. I don't know how she got the address. Maybe she followed Claire. Maybe she hired someone to track us. Carol called me at work. "Eleanor, that woman is on my doorstep. She says she's not leaving until she talks to you." "What do I do?" "Don't open the door," I said. "I'm on my way." I drove back, my heart pounding. When I arrived, Jessica was sitting on the front steps. She looked different without the perfect makeup and designer clothes. She was wearing gray sweatpants and a sweatshirt, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She stood up when she saw me. "Eleanor, we need to talk." "We have nothing to talk about," I responded, keeping my distance. "My lawyer told you. All communication must go through him." She took a step toward me. "Please, just hear me out. 5 minutes. Michael doesn't know I'm here. I came alone." I looked at her eyes. There was something different in them. Something that looked like genuine fear. Against my better judgment, I said, 5 minutes. Out here. You're not coming in the house." We sat on the front steps, separated by a few feet. Jessica was rubbing her hands nervously. "Eleanor, I know we made mistakes. I know we used you. But you don't understand the whole situation. Michael has debts. A lot of debts. More than $200,000 in credit cards and loans. We were desperate. When you said you were selling your house, it seemed like a godsend. We didn't mean any harm. We were just trying to survive. So my survival mattered less than yours," I said in a flat voice. "My money, my work, my life, all of that was disposable so that you two could keep living beyond your means." "It's not like that," she protested. "We were going to pay you back. Eventually, when Michael's situation got better, when he got the promotion he was promised, you were going to get your money back, with interest. Eventually." "Eventually," I repeated. "When exactly? After you had spent every last cent? After you had me sign the power of attorney? After you put me in a cheap nursing home?" "I saw the messages, Jessica. I saw the whole plan. Don't treat me like I'm stupid." She fell silent. A tear rolled down her cheek. "Eleanor, they're going to put Michael in jail. The prosecutor's lawyer says he could face up to 5 years for fraud and financial elder abuse. 5 years. Our children are going to grow up without a father." She looked at me with pleading eyes. "Please, drop the charges. We'll give you back what's left of the money. We'll sign anything. But don't destroy your own son." I felt something tighten in my chest. Because that part of me that was a mother still existed. That part that remembered Michael as a little boy, innocent, full of dreams. But then I remembered something else. I remembered his messages in the Mom Plan group. I remembered how he laughed when they planned to give me the smallest room. I remembered the spreadsheet where my $30,000 turned into vacations and jewelry. I remembered his voice at the family dinner, saying, "Your job is to watch my kids while I enjoy my life." "I'm not destroying my son," I said slowly. "He destroyed himself with his decisions. I am just protecting myself. Something I should have done a long time ago." Jessica stood up abruptly. "You're selfish. A bitter old woman who can't stand to see her own son happy. Michael gave you a roof over your head. He gave you a family, and this is how you repay him. I hope you can live with yourself, knowing you destroyed your own family." I stood up too. I kept my voice calm, though I was shaking inside. "Jessica, my son stole $30,000 from me. He lied to me. He exploited me. He treated me like an unpaid employee. He planned to put me in a nursing home when I was no longer useful. And you were right there every step of the way, supporting him, spending my money on gold bracelets. Don't you dare talk to me about family. You two destroyed that long before I left." She opened her mouth to reply, but no words came out. She turned and walked to her car. Before getting in, she shouted, "This isn't over. We're going to fight this. We're going to get Claire back. And you are going to regret this." I watched her drive away. My legs were trembling. I went into the house and sank onto the sofa. Carol came out of the kitchen, where she had been listening to the whole thing. She hugged me without saying anything, and I let myself cry. For everything I had lost. For everything I would never have again. For the family I thought I had, but which had never really existed. That night, Arthur called me. "Mrs. Ramirez, I have news. Michael is trying to make a deal. He's offering to return $24,000. Everything that's supposedly left after paying some critical debts. In exchange, you drop the criminal charges. You can still pursue the civil suit if you want, but he would avoid jail time." I thought about the offer. 24,000 of my original 45,000. Better than nothing. And Michael would avoid prison. The twins wouldn't grow up visiting their father behind bars. But something in me resisted. "What about the power of attorney he tried to make me sign?" I asked. "What about the furniture they sold? What about all the months I worked for free as a nanny?" Arthur sighed. "Legally, unpaid family caregiving is difficult to quantify in court. The furniture, we can include that in the civil suit. The power of attorney was never signed, so it doesn't constitute a crime, only intent. If you accept the deal, you get most of your money back and you close this chapter. If you move forward with everything, you might win more eventually, but it will be a long, painful, and public process. Your son will go to prison. The decision is yours." "I need to think about it," I said. "Give me a few days." That decision haunted me all week. Claire told me, "Grandma, don't give them anything. Make them pay for everything they did." Carol told me, "Eleanor, only you know what's right for you." I was torn between justice and mercy. Between the son who had been and the man he had become. The answer came in an unexpected way. It was a Tuesday afternoon, 3 weeks after I had left. I was in Carol's garden, watering the mint plants that I had begun to care for as a daily ritual. My phone rang, an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me swipe my finger across the screen. "Hello?" I said, cautiously. "Grandma?" It was Caleb's voice, one of the twins. His little voice shot through the phone like an arrow straight to my heart. "Grandma, I miss you so much. When are you coming back? Dad says you left because you don't love us." My breath caught. I heard a scuffle in the background, then Michael's voice. "Caleb, give me the phone. Now." "No," Caleb shouted. "I want to talk to Grandma." There was a struggle. The phone dropped. I heard Caleb crying. Then Michael's voice, clear and cold. "Do you see what you're causing, Mom? Your grandchildren are suffering because of your selfishness." The call cut off. I stood there with the phone in my hand, shaking. Carol came out into the garden and found me with tears rolling down my cheeks. "What happened?" she asked, alarmed. I told her. She pressed her lips together, furious. "That is pure manipulation. He's using that child as a weapon. This has to stop, Eleanor." I called Arthur immediately. I told him about the call, He listened in silence. Then he said, "This is harassment, using a minor. I can file for a broader restraining order that includes indirect contact. But Mrs. Ramirez, I need you to make a decision about the deal." Michael is pushing because he knows the prosecutor has a solid case. If you reject the deal, we go to trial. He faces serious criminal charges. "I need to know what you want to do." I sat on the garden bench. The afternoon sun warmed my face. I closed my eyes and thought about everything. The $30,000 stolen, the months of unpaid labor, the manipulation, the lies. But I also thought about Caleb crying, about Owen, probably just as confused, about how their lives would change if their father went to prison. And then I realized something. This had never been about revenge. It had been about dignity, about setting boundaries, about saying no more. And I had already achieved that. I had already left. I had already reclaimed my freedom. I had already saved Claire. Sending Michael to prison wouldn't give me back my lost years. It wouldn't heal the wounds. It would only add more pain to an already painful situation. "I'll accept the deal," I told Arthur, "but with conditions. I want the $24,000 in 1 week. I want Michael and Jessica to sign a document acknowledging what they did. I want them to agree to never contact me again, directly or indirectly, and I want them to leave Claire alone. If they try to force her to come back, the deal is off and we go to trial." It took Arthur a moment to respond. "That's fair. I'll draft the terms. But Mrs. Ramirez, are you sure? You have every right to demand full justice." "I'm sure," I replied. "I don't want my grandchildren to grow up hating me because I put their father in prison. I've already lost enough. I'm not going to lose my peace of mind too, looking for a revenge that wouldn't make me feel any better." The agreement was signed the following Friday. Arthur had me come to his office. I arrived with Carol by my side for moral support. Michael and Jessica were already there with their own lawyer, a man in a dark suit with a grim face. Michael wouldn't look me in the eye. Jessica stared at the floor. Arthur read the terms aloud. "Michael and Jessica Ramirez acknowledge having improperly used $24,000 belonging to Mrs. Eleanor Ramirez. They agree to return said amount in full within 7 days. They acknowledge having sold personal property of Mrs. Ramirez without authorization for a value of $800, which will also be reimbursed. They agree not to contact Mrs. Ramirez or her granddaughter, Claire Sanchez, by any means, direct or indirect, unless through legal representation. Mrs. Ramirez agrees to withdraw the criminal charges but maintains the right to proceed with a civil suit if any of these terms are violated." We all signed. The pens scratched against the paper in the tense silence of the office. When we finished, Arthur gathered the documents. Michael's lawyer passed him a check. Arthur reviewed it. He nodded. $24,800. "It's all in order." Michael stood up to leave. At the door, he stopped. He turned to me for the first time. "Mom," he said in a low voice, "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I don't know at what point everything got out of control. I love you. I've always loved you." I looked him in the eye, those eyes that were just like mine. "Michael," I replied in a calm voice, "I wish that had been enough. But love without respect isn't love. It's just a word you use when you need something. I hope someday you understand that. For your children's sake." He opened his mouth as if to say something else, but nothing came out. He left the office with Jessica trailing behind him. I watched them walk away through the window. I felt something close inside me. A chapter ending. A door closing softly but definitively. That night, Claire, Carol, and I celebrated in the small kitchen. Nothing extravagant. Just homemade pasta, a salad, and a bottle of cheap wine that Carol pulled from her pantry. We toasted to new beginnings. To women who save each other. To the courage to say enough. With the recovered money, I started to plan. I couldn't stay with Carol forever. She insisted there was no hurry, that we were welcome for as long as we needed. But I needed my own space again. I needed to rebuild myself in a place that was mine. I found a small apartment 2 miles from Carol's house. An old but well-maintained building with 2-bedroom apartments for seniors. The rent was $600 a month, utilities included. It had a small kitchen with an east-facing window, perfect for the morning Sunday. It had a narrow balcony where I could put flower pots. And most importantly, it had 2 bedrooms. One for me, one for Claire. I showed her the place. She walked through the empty rooms, her footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors. "Grandma, it's perfect," she said with a smile. "We can make it our own." We signed the lease the following week. We moved in with the little we had. Carol helped us, bringing boxes of things she no longer used. Dishes, pots, sheets, towels. "We'll share what I have," she insisted. "What's family for, if not for this?" The first day in our apartment was strange, quiet, empty, but also full of possibility. Claire and I assembled the second-hand furniture we bought. A small table for the kitchen, a slightly worn but comfortable olive green sofa, 2 beds, a bookshelf for Claire's books. Little by little, the empty space filled up with life. I planted mint on the balcony, 3 small pots of the plant that had become my symbol of resilience. Mint that grows anywhere, that survives even when it's cut back, that always comes back stronger. Like me. One afternoon, sitting on the balcony watching the sunset, Claire asked me, "Grandma, do you think you'll ever forgive Dad?" I thought about the question. The sky was turning orange and pink, the clouds moving slowly. "I think forgiveness is complicated," I replied. "It doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean letting it happen again. It means letting go of the poison so it doesn't make you sick inside. Someday, maybe I can forgive him, but I will never forget, and I will never let him hurt me again." She nodded. She put her head on my shoulder. "I admire you so much, Grandma. You're the strongest person I know." I laughed softly. "I don't feel strong, Claire. Most days I just feel like I'm surviving. But surviving is its own victory, I think." The weeks passed. The apartment felt more like home. I got a part-time job at a neighborhood flower shop. Nothing fancy, just helping arrange bouquets and attending to customers 3 days a week. They paid me $11 an hour. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Money I earned with my own effort that no one could take from me. Claire thrived in her new life. Her grades improved. She made new friends. She started to smile more. One night, she came home excited. "Grandma, I got into the art club at school. We're going to have an exhibition next month. Do you want to come?" "Of course," I answered, hugging her. I wouldn't miss it for the world. The messages from Michael eventually stopped. The last I heard from him was a short text message 3 months after the agreement. "Mom, just wanted you to know the kids are okay. Owen got good grades. Caleb made the soccer team. Thought you'd like to know." I didn't reply, but I saved the message. 6 months after I had left, my life had found a rhythm I never thought possible. I woke up when my body was ready, not when an alarm demanded I serve others. I drank my coffee on the balcony, watching the sun rise over the neighborhood buildings. The mint plants had grown lush, their green, vibrant leaves moving gently in the morning breeze. Sometimes I would pick a leaf and rub it between my fingers, letting the scent remind me of where I had come from and how far I had gone. The flower shop became more than a job. The owner, a woman named Megan, in her 50s, taught me the secret language of flowers. "Roses don't just mean love," she would tell me as we assembled a bouquet. "Chrysanthemums speak of truth. Daisies of innocence. Lilies of renewal." I listened and learned, and for the first time in decades, I felt like I was growing as a person instead of just existing for others. Claire blossomed in ways that filled my heart. Her art exhibition was a success. She presented a series of paintings about invisible women, women who worked in the background while others shone in the spotlight. One of the paintings was of me, though I didn't recognize it at first. An older woman standing in a kitchen, her figure almost transparent, while life went on around her, unseen. When I asked her why she had painted me like that, she said, "Because for a long time you were invisible to everyone except me. But you're not anymore, Grandma. Now, everyone sees you." One Saturday afternoon, 3 months after we moved, I received an unexpected call. It was a number I didn't recognize, but something inside me knew I should answer. "Hello?" I said cautiously. "Grandma Eleanor?" It was Owen's voice, the other twin. More mature than the last time I heard it, but unmistakable. "Grandma, it's me, Owen. Please Please don't hang up. My heart sped up. Hello, Owen, I replied softly. How are you? There was a silence. Then, I miss you. Caleb misses you too. Dad and Mom don't let us talk about you. They say you abandoned us. But I found your number in Dad's old phone. I wanted to hear your voice. Tears began to roll down my cheeks. I miss you both so much, I whispered, every single day. How are you? We're okay. He told me about school, about Caleb's soccer, about his new teacher. He spoke quickly, as if afraid someone would discover him. Then he said something that broke me. Grandma, Dad says you hated us. That's why you left. But I don't believe him. You never looked at us like we were a burden. Not like they do. Owen, listen closely to what I'm about to tell you, I said, my voice firm but loving. I love you. You and Caleb, and even Claire, who is with me. I love you more than words can say. I didn't leave because I didn't love you. I left because your dad was hurting me in ways you can't understand yet. Sometimes the people we love hurt us. And walking away isn't abandonment. It's protection. I heard his shaky breath. I understand, he said finally. Or maybe I don't understand all of it. But I know you're not bad. I know Mom and Dad lie about a lot of things. I see it. Grandma, when I'm older, can I come visit you? Of course you can, I replied. When you're older and can make your own decisions, my door will always be open for you. The call lasted only 10 minutes. When he hung up, I sat on the sofa, holding the phone to my chest. Claire came out of her room. She saw me crying and sat next to me. It was the twins, I said. Owen called. She hugged me without saying a word. Sometimes, silence is the best comfort. Autumn arrived, painting the trees in warm colors. The leaves fell like whispered confessions, covering the streets in shades of amber and cinnamon. I turned 73 in October. Carol and Claire threw me a small party in our apartment. Chocolate cake, candles, an off-key song of happy birthday. Simple but meaningful gifts. Carol gave me a hand-knit mustard-colored sweater. Claire gave me a journal with a note on the first page. So you can write your story, Grandma. The real one, the one no one can take from you. That night, alone in my room, I opened the journal. The blank page intimidated me. What story did I have to tell? But then I picked up the pen and began to write. Not from the beginning, but from the end. I wrote, Today I turned 73, and for the first time in decades I am free. Then I kept writing backward, unraveling the threads of my life, finding patterns I hadn't seen before. Sacrifice, silence, submission, but also resilience, resistance, rebirth. One November afternoon, while I was working at the flower shop, a young woman came in with a baby in her arms. She needed an arrangement for her grandmother's funeral. As we talked, tears streamed down her face. She raised me, she told me. My parents were too busy with their careers. My grandmother was the one who took care of me, who listened to me, who saw me, and I never thanked her enough. Now she's gone, and I can't tell her how much she meant to me. I made her the most beautiful arrangement I could. White lilies for renewal, pink roses for gratitude, mint for eternal memory. When I handed it to her, I said, She knew. Grandmothers always know. Love doesn't need constant words. It's felt in the small moments, in the glances, in the presence. She knew. The woman hugged me, crying. Thank you, she whispered. I needed to hear that. When she left, I stood there thinking, maybe someday, many years from now, Owen or Caleb would remember the breakfasts I made them, the stories I read to them, the hugs I gave them. Maybe they would remember that someone had loved them unconditionally, even if she couldn't stay. And maybe that would be enough. December brought cold and Christmas lights. Claire and I decorated our apartment modestly. A wreath on the door, white lights around the window, a small second-hand tree we decorated with handmade ornaments. We didn't have much, but we had enough. We had peace. We had dignity. We had each other. On Christmas Eve, Carol invited us to dinner. We cooked together, the three women in her small kitchen, laughing as we peeled potatoes and seasoned the turkey. The house smelled of cinnamon and rosemary. The table was set with her good china. And when we sat down to eat, Carol raised her glass of cheap wine and made a toast. To the women who rise up. To the ones who leave when they need to leave. To the ones who build families with those who value them, not just those who share their blood. We clinked our glasses. The sound echoed like small bells. And in that moment, surrounded by these two women who had saved me as much as I had saved them, I realized something. I had lost so much. My house, my money, my relationship with my son, my grandchildren. But I had gained something far more valuable. I had gained myself back. That night, back in our apartment, I sat on the balcony despite the cold. The mint plants were dormant for the winter, but their roots were still alive under the soil, waiting for spring to grow again. Like me, I had been through the darkest winter of my life. But spring would come. It always does. Claire came out onto the balcony with a blanket. She wrapped it around my shoulders and sat next to me. "Grandma, what are you thinking about?" I smiled. "I'm thinking that I didn't need to shout to be heard. I just needed to leave to be understood. I'm thinking that I spent 72 years learning to be small, invisible, and helpful. And now, I'm learning to be me, whole, visible, valuable." She took my hand. "You did it, Grandma. You got out. You survived. You won." I shook my head gently. "It wasn't about winning, Claire. It was about choosing me. Finally, after a lifetime, I chose myself. And that, my child, was the greatest victory of all." The night sky was full of stars. The city glowed softly around us. Somewhere in that city was Michael with his children, probably telling them the story where I was the villain. But I wasn't carrying that narrative anymore. I had written my own. And in my story, I wasn't the villain or the victim. I was the hero who saved herself. Claire rested her head on my shoulder. We stayed like that, in silence, watching the city lights twinkle like small promises. The future stretched out before us, uncertain but full of possibility. And for the first time in a long time, that future didn't scare me. Because I had learned the most important lesson: that you can love someone and still walk away, that you can forgive without forgetting, that you can start over at any age. The mint on the balcony was waiting for spring. I was, too. But I was no longer waiting to serve others. I was waiting to bloom for myself. And when that spring came, when the plants grew back and the world filled with green again, I would be here, free, whole, and finally at home in my own life. I never went back to that house where I was invisible. I never again answered when they called to ask for something. I closed that door, gently but firmly. And on the other side, I built something new, something of my own, something that no one could ever take away from me again. They never again touched my name without my permission, and I never again made myself small to fit into the spaces others designed for me. This was my life now, and it was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.